Hello, family. Listen, I have a treat for you today. You know, it's all about the business and wellness tune up this year. I am Shaquita Graham, your host for the Nubian Essence Luxury Retreat, and I have with me Shiphrah, our sister. Now, look, she is a doula, she is a women's wellness specialist, she is about protecting the tribe. There's so much I have to share with you about her. She has been in this practice for over 10 years. She has helped to deliver 60 to 7 babies. She told me she stopped counting at 50. Sister Shiphrah, how are you today?
I am well and blessed. Ms. Shaquita, thank you so much for having me here.
Listen, with everything that we have going on in reproductive health, all of the misinformation, all of the misunderstandings, we need you today out here, Sister Shiphrah. Can you kind of tell us a little bit about your background, your practice, what you do?
Absolutely. So I'll take it back a little further. Growing up, people would always ask, what do you want to be when you grow up? So I'm a little black girl growing up in inner city Philadelphia, and I made great grades in school and all that stuff. And I would say, a mother. And that was not the right answer. That was definitely not the right answer. All I knew is that I wanted to be around some babies and help take care of babies. And that's what I love doing. But I didn't know what that would look like. I didn't know a career path, at that age, what this would look like, in the long run for me. And so I studied infant and child development in college, thinking that I wanted to open up a holistic daycare, which I still would like to do one day. If anybody wants to get together and collaborate with me on that, let me know. But which I would still like to do one day. But that just wasn't it for me. I began to get into birth work via having my own children. I was a young mother. I was a teen mom with my oldest daughter. Had a beautiful birth with her. Went through a couple struggles here and there, things with breastfeeding, things like that. My family just did not understand why I wanted to breastfeed. My mother was kind of like, we're not poor. What's going on? You don't have to breastfeed. And I was like, no, I want to breastfeed my baby. I want her to be healthy and I want her to thrive. So even as a young mom, I knew these things were important. And a lot of it I felt like was, intuitive, that I just knew these things were important and, good for my babies. But when I had questions about certain holistic practices and, things like that, I didn't know where to go. So a lot of things I had to study for myself to find out information just to be able to take care of my own family. And then I had friends that would come and say, oh, well, you know about this. My baby's getting a fever. Is this too high? Should I take them in? What should I do? Things like that. And the more I began to study and share information, I just said, this is needed. Families need help, all the way from preconception, all the way through early childhood. And I said, I feel like I was called, to fit into that space. And I'm definitely down to do the work.
Wow. Wow, you said so much in there. I just want to there's so much we need to know, Sister Shiphrah. Okay, so you talked about when you were younger, you had a feeling that you wanted to be around babies and you wanted to be a mother. Do you believe that at that time and even now that we're discouraging this innate instinct in our young women to want to, like you say, your mantra being take back your wellness and to feel like that nurturer that cares for a baby and wants to be there to focus on procreation and bringing new babies into this world? Can you kind of talk about how you see that happening and how you address that or come across that in your work?
Absolutely. As myself, as a Black woman, I felt like it was discouraged. Like I have 4 children. And so people always, you have so many children. Are they all yours? Why'd you have so many children? Even my own family, not understanding. And at this point, I'm like, well, yeah, I may have a few more. And that just, everybody's like clutching their, like, oh my goodness, what's wrong with you? And I'm like, what's wrong with that? Our bodies were created and designed to bring life, into this world. So what's wrong with that? There's nothing wrong with that. I love my children. I love mothering. It's something about mothering that, in my opinion, doesn't compare to anything else. And I just believe it. I love it. I think it's a beautiful thing. But I definitely believe there's a discouragement that's there that's pushing women, more towards find your career, find what you could do to kind of help this system, work a little bit better. That's what I'm seeing more so, and not necessarily follow what you feel like intuitively, you're being called to do. And when it comes to our wellness, I feel like we're also, kind of encouraged to turn our wellness over into the hands of people who I feel like are not very concerned about us being well. And sometimes it's a matter of, I feel like keeping us continually sick so that we continue, to have to go back to get medicines, to go to the hospital, so on and so on. And we end up feeling kind of, like hopeless, kind of like, well, my health is put in someone else's hands. I have to go to someone else for the answers, whether it's me, my baby, my pregnancy. I'm not taught to trust my intuition. I'm not taught, how to take care of myself, how to, use natural medicine, herbs and foods, things like that to bring about wellness for ourselves and our family. So I feel like it's really important we get back on the road to taking that back.
Wow. That's what's up right now. I mean, it's so beautiful. So your message being take our wellness back.
Absolutely.
It sounds like you're saying fertility is right for us. Procreating is right. You said there's nothing wrong. On the flip side, is everything is right with that. Wanting to be a mother, wanting to be fertile, wanting to have several children, it's a beautiful thing. And when you talk about the hospitals or whatever you want to call the traditional medical system, wanting to keep us addicted to prescriptions, addicted to their way of doing things, hopeless, uninformed, all of those things. How do you confront that in your work? How do you see that surface in your work and with your different clients and things like that? What are the symptoms of these ideas kind of bearing out?
Gotcha. So what I see a lot, for instance, so I'll take it with pregnancy, for instance, right? So you go to a doctor, and I'm not saying there's anything wrong. There's sometimes when we do, need these services, but let's utilize them when they're medically necessary, and let's not abuse them. And let's not make it seem like everybody's pregnancy is high risk and an emergency, and something that is out of, the mother's control per se. So for instance, I see we turn over all of our, intuition into letting other people tell us about our pregnancy and our baby's position. So no longer are the days when we're taught to feel and palpate so we can know where our babies even are in the womb, so we can connect with our babies. We go to other places so they can tell us, what's going on with our babies that are growing inside of our bodies, and that just doesn't make sense. And I'm an advocate for, if we're doing this here, you also need to be, learning your body, learning your baby, having that connection. And though that using that intuition, to do that should start in preconception. That should start in young womanhood, if that makes sense. And then, so what we end up doing, so you go through your pregnancy that way, the birth ends up being very similar a lot of times, where someone else is telling you how you need to birth, what position you need to be in, where the mother's intuition tells her what position she needs to be in that's best to help guide her baby out of her body, so those are the things that I'm kind of there as a navigator per se. I'm trying to encourage and empower these families to take back that control and take back that power that they have, to trust in their intuition, trusting to know if they need to seek, help outside of, what is normal and common, so on and so on. And then I see the same thing, I worked in a pediatric office for almost 4 years. I see that the same thing with our infants. Then we have babies, and now we don't trust our intuition to parents. So we're constantly looking for other people to tell us how to care for our own children that we helped to create and that we carried and that we birthed. And that just doesn't make sense to me. I had an amazing pediatrician with my oldest daughter. He was foreign, and I have to say that because I feel like it's important to the story. And he was just so relaxed. He was just like, well, she's sleeping. Are you feeding her? She's fine, And every time, I had questions, things like that, he would always, if something's wrong, you'll know, things like that. And I felt like that was so encouraging, but I don't see that now. What I see now is, parents being almost encouraged to worry, and everything is being made into a big deal lots of times when it's not. Parents aren't being pushed towards learning, more holistic and natural treatments to their children, because as it goes, when you start giving medications, lots of times you have to turn around and give another medication, to help with the last medication that we took. And we're starting our children so young, taking medications and putting synthetic things into their systems that their systems cannot handle, if that makes sense. And I just want us to take that power back, love your intuition, appreciate your intuition and that power that we have. We help to create these babies. We can grow them. We can birth them. And we can do so in a natural way that is not harmful to the mother or the baby. So that is what I'm here for.
All right, so I have some questions for you. Real quick, I have to stop here and just let people know that for those who are interested in the Nubian Essence Business and Wellness Retreat, definitely go to Nubian Essence luxuryretreat.com so that you can be a part of the programs that we have available on this site and get this wisdom, this ancient wisdom, like what our sister Shiphrah shares with us, because we need to make this the norm. We need to understand our bodies and understand our options. And I'm just going to keep saying that. I might steal it. If you hear me saying, take your wellness back, no, I got it from her because I think that is so important for us to keep saying. And so let's kind of go a little deeper, right? We talked about some of the things that have been going wrong. And one of the things that I feel is like a big issue is that we're not sharing this wisdom to the point where it's commonplace. Like in certain communities, they have a way of doing things, and that's just the way everybody does it. In our community, there's a lot of dysfunctional ways we do things. Like, I've seen where parents, like your mom, someone that, your age would have a mom that says, you better get that baby immunized. You better make sure you get them immunizations, and your doctor, you even said like about breastfeeding that maybe you've heard, or someone in your family said, well, we're not poor. Why are you breastfeeding? So we have all of these misconceptions. So talk to us, how do we do it right? Because a doula, I even had the idea that a doula is just for when I am having a baby and maybe postpartum, but you had shed some light on some services a doula or someone who has this type of information can help me with, even if I'm not involved in having a child right now or those types of things. Can you share on that level?
Absolutely. So first I'll say there are so many different types of doulas. So doula is just a very general term, a very general and basic term. And it's difficult.
I'm sorry, Sister Shiphrah, can I ask you to just talk up a little bit? I think it might be an issue with our audio. If you could just talk up a little bit more.
Okay. So I was just saying, is this a little bit better?
Yeah.
Okay. So what I was just saying is that, there are lots of different types of doulas, right? Doula is such a very general and very basic term.
Mm-hmm.
It's just a very general, oh, she's a doula. And we automatically think birth, she's there for the birth. There are some doulas that don't attend births. There are postpartum doulas who only help to take care of the mother and infant during the postpartum phase so that the mother can do her laying in, keep her feet up, make sure her body is healing. There are doulas that help with things like pregnancy loss and infant loss. So they're called bereavement doulas that help with that. There are doulas that can help with preconception. Those are fertility doulas. There are pregnancy doulas or antenatal doulas that help with just your pregnancy for women. Like for instance, I have a condition called hyperemesis gravidarum, which I tend to have during pregnancies, which I vomit a lot during most of my pregnancies and don't gain a lot of weight, right? My babies are healthy and great, but I don't. I would have loved to have known that pregnancy doulas were a thing. I just didn't know. I wasn't aware until I got into, birth work. And once I really got my hands into birth work, I was like, oh, there's just a whole underground world here that I didn't know about. So doula just means, someone to walk with the woman. That's pretty much the term. It's just someone to walk with the woman. And that could look like, a lot of different scenarios. I have a client currently that I'm working with. We began working together after she lost her early pregnancy. And now we're working together to help prepare the womb for her next intentional pregnancy. So that's what we're doing. We're just making sure she is healed, she is well, the body is nourished, hormonal issues have been addressed. Those are things we're working on currently. So when her and her mate are ready to begin to intentionally conceive, she knows that her body is well prepared. So there's so many different things that a doula can do. It doesn't, like we talked about it, one day I said there needs to be something like a menstrual doula. So many women have hard very painful cycles. And there needs to be someone coming in teaching you how to care for yourself, what herbs you should be taking, what foods we should be eating, how do we detox, things like that. Those things are so important. And I feel like with our ancestors, this information was once just passed down generation to generation, right? And then, of course, we had that interruption. We had a interruption, and now we're so disconnected from that. There has to be something like doulas and midwives, and things like that to now help and be the navigators to guide us back to that holistic living.
And, that's why I strive on platforms like this to share this wisdom with groups of women so that we can, in our own households, start telling our nieces, start telling, our daughters' friends and the different young Black women, young Black girls that we come in contact with, how to understand these ancient principles and these ancient ideas. And I want you to speak to some of the ancient wisdom that we just don't know and we need to understand. But also, can I just stop for a second and focus on the Black fathers out there? Because there's this conversation and this narrative that's been going on for so long that Black men, they're not interested in being involved. They're not interested in being fathers. They, what are you seeing and what experiences are you having?
I am blessed because I get to see all these beautiful Black fathers show up and show out. I can think of one family in particular. I worked with this family and it was a blessing to me. And I just kind of had to laugh throughout this birth. But this father showed up and he advocated for his family. We had discussions before we went into this hospital birth, that they had chosen for their own reasons, but the father went in and at one point had dismissed the doctor and was just like, no, you're using the C-section surgical term. And we said we didn't even want that term discussed. And if you're going to discuss it, we could discuss it out in the hallway, but it's not to be discussed around her while she's laboring, so he pretty much protected that space and made sure that her space was sacred and secure and she was comfortable and that people weren't coming to ask her questions and interrupting her birth space, which is it just doesn't make sense. A woman is in the middle of having a surge or what we call contraction, and people are coming in for her to sign paperwork. That is highly disruptive. So no wonder the birth now is derailed, and no wonder things are not going the way they're supposed to. Her mind is trying to disconnect so that she can focus on birthing, and it's trying to disconnect from, the physical presence that we have here. I always say women go off to go find their baby. So I always say, let yourself go find your baby. She's trying to go get her baby and find her baby to bring her baby earthside, and people are standing in front of her constantly bringing her back with paperwork to sign and asking her questions and discussing surgical birth, when there's no, risk that there's no emergency that we're looking at right now. And so I just remember this father, and this was the first birth I was ever at where they called the hospital attorney to come and talk to the father. And they wanted the couple to leave the hospital. They wanted them to leave. The doctor actually said, well, you can leave. Basically, if you don't want to follow our rules, you can leave. And I understand it's an institution. It is a business. They have protocol. Perfectly understand that. But there is a way that you deal with humans who are going through a life transition, such as becoming parents and birthing a baby. And there are ways that you treat people and talk to people. And I just feel like my people are getting the short end of the stick when it comes to that. And I really don't like it. That's kind of what I'm here for, is to say, to prepare these families before going into that space so that we can have, the father, the grandmother, whoever we need around to help protect that space. So what I'm seeing, though, I'm seeing beautiful Black fathers show up, show out, support their women through pregnancy, be intentional about conception, asking about, proper family planning after, birth. I'm seeing these fathers show up and take care of these babies and love on their babies and catch their babies in their hands, and be the ones to either cut or burn the umbilical cord, all of these beautiful things, help with breastfeeding. My fathers have questions. My fathers call and text and say, hey, well, I don't know, she doesn't seem like she's feeling too well today. Do you mind coming by? But mom will be on the other line like, no, I'm fine, because she has, the Black woman superhero syndrome. I'm fine. Dad's like, no, I don't like the way she's looking today. Do you mind coming by just to check up on her? So I am seeing fathers that are showing up and showing out, and it is a blessing to me. Every experience is more confirmation. But I'm also seeing these fathers in certain institutional settings where they're treated like they're invisible. And I'm like, it's bad enough that the woman and the baby, the black woman and the black baby almost seem like we're disposable, here, but then the fathers are treated like they're invisible a lot of the times. And that's a no-no. So lots of times those are things that we discuss and get ourselves prepared for, and say that you may have to, let them know, hey, I'm the father, you can talk to me, if that makes sense. If she's in the middle of a surge and she cannot be responsive. And those are things that I've taken it, upon my responsibility to prepare my families for. But I trust my families also that they will navigate well with the correct information. And once they are prepared, if I don't go in, it's not my job to take over their birth experience. My job is to give the information, the education, make sure we are well prepared, and to be there to share that space and to give support.
Wow, you said so much. I love it. You pack a powerful punch, Sister Shiphrah. I love it. Okay, so I just want to dig in some more. So it sounds like Black love is a real thing. Black family is a real thing. Okay. The toxic masculinity is a fake idea. Okay. So, and this is from somebody who's dealing with Black families all the time. That's beautiful. Now, I want to just kind of clarify and just make sure we're reiterating what you're saying, because when you're saying take back your wellness, it's like you're saying that even you as a doula don't want to take control of a situation. You want to empower, make sure people are informed, they're supported, they feel like they're being heard. And that's not what we're getting for the most part in these institutions. You use the word disposable. Ignored as some things that you have witnessed in the system. Okay, so now let's go. I heard you use some terminology that people may not be aware of. Let's go into some of this ancient wisdom we don't know about, some of these practices that are foreign to us. I heard you say 3 things. Let yourself find your baby.
Absolutely.
Birth space. Surges. What are some of the mentalities and the fundamental language and practices that we are missing when it comes to addressing our reproductive health, birthing, and so on?
Absolutely. So kind of like I was talking, I'm here in Dallas in the DFW area right now, visiting a good sister friend, and we were having a great talk earlier, and I was just telling her about intuition. We are taught so much about measurements and numbers and other people telling us what we need to do, how much we need to take, what time we need to take it, and it overrides our intuition, in my opinion. This is my opinion. It overrides our intuition. So then we don't know how to connect with our true selves. How do we connect with our babies? How do we trust our intuition? How do we trust that we can birth this baby? And I always say, well, we trusted that we could conceive this baby, right? So let's trust that this baby could come on out. And I'm not minimalizing the fact that sometimes, emergencies do happen sometimes during birth, but it's a very small number. It's a small number. It's not as large. Every birth is not an emergency. It's not this large number that via TV we're led to believe that every birth someone is screaming and in pain and things go wrong and we need 10 doctors in the room. That's just not birth. I am blessed to witness so many beautiful, not just home births, lots of beautiful home births, but also beautiful and amazing hospital births, with providers present who are just comfortable with birth, and they trust women, and they trust women's bodies, and they trust fathers, and they trust doulas, and they have midwives present, and I've been blessed to work with other providers who are not, midwives, who trusted families and gave families options. And they told them, well, instead of saying, this is what you have to do, well, these are your options. And this is what I've seen happen when you may choose this. This is what I've seen happen when you may choose that, instead of saying, this is what you're going to do, or instead of using scare tactics into making people make decisions that later on they're not comfortable, with knowing that they made. So with that being said, going back to some of these things that I like to say, a lot of it, we got to soften up some of this language. Birth is a beautiful, beautiful thing, but it's also delicate, in my opinion. So we have to handle it with care. So when we say words, like if you hear a word and I say contraction, every time you have a contraction, that sounds so harsh to me. It sounds like some kind of it sounds medical to me, like something's wrong. It sounds like something that's going to be painful. I expect it not to be a good thing, and I already want to get an epidural when I hear contractions. That just sounds like my body is going to be squeezing itself, and I am not going to be comfortable. But if we say,
it
well,
sounds like I'm gonna be stabbed to me. Like,
that is not a good thing. Yes, nobody wants to think about that. But if you are rubbing a mama's back and you're just saying, all right, mama, you know, you have a surge coming, or your next wave is going to come, and you're preparing her for it. And you say, so when your next wave comes, I want you to do this. It's so much more relaxing. It almost sounds like a lullaby. That sounds like something I can handle. A wave? Okay, I like waves. I go to the beach. I like waves. I can handle that. You know, a surge? Okay, that doesn't sound too bad. Surge sounds like something that will come and something that will go away, right? That sounds so bad. It's like, I can do that. A surge, I can handle that. So sometimes it's just as simple as the language we are using when we're explaining these things to families, you know, and language is so important. It's something that, you know, I feel like in this society, we just don't pay enough attention to, that our words also have connotations, you know, to them that encourage us to feel one way or the other, positive or negative, you know, good or bad, high or low. So we have to be very careful with the language that we're using with families that are, you know, preparing to have children.
And speaking further on that language, like I'm kind of uncomfortable with the language of just saying reproductive health all the time, like it's some kind of machine. Like I like the womb language and all of that kind of thing. Can you talk a little bit more? Just go and stay in that same vein. I just wanted to interject that.
Okay, absolutely. And so a lot of times I'll use words. Sometimes you'll hear me use the word conception. I like the word conception. I don't know why, but that is one of my favorite words. Just to conceive, it just sounds like something is transpiring, something beautiful is about to happen. So a lot of times I'll say creation, you know, birthing, you know, versus things like, well, when you deliver your baby, that sounds like something you do with a package or a box of pizza. Mm-hmm. You know, when you birth your baby, that just sounds like something so much more beautiful, you know, if that makes sense. So speaking of things like your womb, your feminine essence, you know, instead of saying, you know, your menstrual, you know, things like, you know, when you have your moon cycle, you know, things like that, just soften it up a little bit, keep it pretty, you know, things that go on with our bodies are beautiful things. They are amazing and they are gorgeous. And our language should also reflect that. And if we don't have a word currently that, you know, fits what we're trying to say, I think with most languages, they tend to make up words when they want to anyway. Find a word, find something that fits, you know, what you're trying to describe. So sometimes when I'm teaching childbirth education classes or breastfeeding classes, one thing I have to pay attention to is that language, because I'm trying to pull my families away from what they're exposed to every day, which is, you know, with breastfeeding, your body may be broken, your baby may be broken, something may go wrong, you may not make enough milk, you know, and all these big terms. And these big terms are fancy, you know, they're cute. Some people love them and respect them, but that's just not where I am. I want you to love your body, nourish your baby, bring your baby to the breast, you know, things like that, you know, learn to love your baby, you know, and sometimes when I'll say, you know, bring your baby to the breast, connect with your baby, you know, things like those words, you know, instead of some of the harsher terms, you know, that are used, you know, in that allopathic world. And so,
wow.
That's pretty much it.
I mean, shoot, I'm ready to bring my babies to the breast the way you make it sound. It sounds really, I'm trying to conceive.
Let's do it.
But I love it because you're saying, again, when we're using terms, sometimes we're not thinking of the fullness and the depth of it. And when you say take back your wellness, you mean even in the language, even in your space, even, you know, in everything, your intuition, your mental capacity, take it all back. Don't put it in the hands of someone else to dictate. And also we have to, you know, we have to take responsibility when we choose to depend on people and institutions who never said that they were there for that. They never said that they were going to be the one to tie you into self-control wellness or herb. They never said that, you know? And so you are the one who have them on speed dial, and you see your baby nose running and you asking for a prescription. So it could be that even in the midst of medical apartheid and things like that, there is still a way that we can use medical institutions as a tool and keep them in their proper perspective. Is that right?
Absolutely. Because a lot of these things, I'm glad that they exist. For instance, I explained to my families, obstetricians are trained surgeons. They do their jobs very well. And I'm glad they're there when we have a birth emergency, right?
Mm-hmm.
But every woman does not need a trained surgeon at her birth, you know, because birth usually goes very normally and very beautifully, right? So then we talk about things like even with midwives. In the birth world, we have what we call midwives and medwives. We refer to, you know, the old school, traditional, ancient, you know, wisdom birth workers, you know, that prepare families for birth and are there to catch babies and let someone else in the family, you know, are prepared to catch the baby. We call them midwives. We call a lot of more, you know, medically based, you know, trained midwives, we'll call them medwives. And I use that terminology so my families can understand that there is a difference. You know, just because we put a label, you know, on someone that doesn't tell you what their beliefs are, that doesn't tell you if they trust your body, that doesn't tell you who trained them, you know, what is their outlook and their background. You know, so I do feel like all of those things are important, you know, and I do feel like we do have to take the power back, you know, if you do choose, you know, to birth, let's say in a certain environment, things like that. Once you have prepared yourself, you know, these are some of the statistics from that institution, you know, and so on and so on. You are now taking control and deciding, you know, this is where I want my birth to happen, or this is where I want to take my baby for medical care. They may give me a prescription. I have brought my baby here. I made that choice, and I'm taking the power in my hand instead of just saying, oh, well, the doctor gave me this and then something bad happened. No, but we took our baby, you know, to that doctor. It was up to us to do the research to figure out, you know, what were other patients' experiences, you know, how does that practice feel about immunization? How does that practice feel about, you know, overloading with medications, you know, about breastfeeding? Are they breastfeeding friendly? You know, so those are things I do my best to talk to parents about, because a lot of parents they just assume if you're a pediatrician, you're familiar with breastfeeding. I've learned in my years that is not necessarily true or not supportive of breastfeeding. And so, yes, we definitely have to take back the power, because we are making the choices, you know, to put our health in whoever's hands we choose to put it in. So absolutely.
And I like how you talked about the fathers protecting their wives' spaces. And I think that we don't allow our men to be the lead just in our lives, period, because they have a lot of practical wisdom. Even though they're not women, they can give us some guidance. I mean, I know that my husband, he has a lot to say about my children's health, and you know what path we want to take and things like that. So you know, when we start to depend on people outside of our family, outside of our marriage, I think that can kind of lead us in the wrong direction, and we should include them. But I want to go, first of all, we are going to get to the purpose of women's healthcare specialist, doula, or however you want to use the phrase, talking about women's health outside of pregnancy. But first, I want to kind of just circle around this space for a second. And I want to read to you something that Planned Parenthood tweeted out October 31st. They said, if you're a Black woman in America, it's statistically safer to have an abortion than to carry a pregnancy to term or give birth. What do you think about that? I mean, what are the thoughts that come to your head, and what do you want people to know about statements like this?
I want to highlight a part of the phrase that you said. You said for a Black woman in America. I just want to clarify, not for a Black woman, a Black woman in America. And for us to be one of the most developed countries per se, whatever developed means, you know, I use that term loosely. We have women of color have the highest maternal mortality and maternal morbidity rates in this country. Seems like we're doing better in much less developed countries, if that makes sense. And so then we have to go back to the root of why is that? You know, why are our babies not making it to see a year of age? Why are the infant mortality rates in the Black community so high? What's missing? You know, where's the support? Where are the people to let us know? Like you said, like I said earlier, you know, with the dad messaging, can you come and check on her today? You know, where's the community support? Where are the people that came by to check on the mom? Who came by to make sure she had food, to make sure breastfeeding was going well? Which is why I have a career right now. And a part of it, to be honest, is unfortunate, because sometimes I wish that we still had that strong unity and that community support. We didn't have everybody, quote unquote, all up in our business per se, because there was a time when we knew how to take care of our babies, and we knew how to do it with almost nothing.
And we were taking care of other people's babies.
And they trusted us to do it. So we know we have something that's strong and that's very powerful. And I always say that we're still here considering what we've been through, and we were able to raise families with next to nothing, physically speaking, right? So why is it now, when we have everything from a physical standpoint, we have the houses, we have the cars, we have the health insurance, we have access to, quote unquote, the best health care, why are we faring so poorly? So we need to get back to the root of that. Obviously, this system per se either was not designed for us, A, was designed against us, B, was not necessarily designed with us in mind per se. You know, we have to get back to the root of why are we not doing well? You get what I'm saying? Does this system not trust us? Do they not trust when we say that, you know, I'm not feeling well? I don't know if you recently heard about Serena Williams' story after she had her little one.
I didn't.
So I want to encourage everybody to go and read this story. It was pretty heartbreaking. However, it happens every day. It was highlighted with her, of course, because she's a celebrity. And when celebrities talk, lots of people stop and listen. When most mothers around the corner from us talk, we really don't stop and listen. We kind of poo-poo her, just like, oh, well, you probably did something wrong. Oh, well, you probably weren't doing this right. But she almost died after giving birth to her baby. And I don't want to mess it up, but I want to say she had a pulmonary embolism or something like that. It was something, she had blood clots or something like that in her lungs. She knew it. She had asked, if I'm not mistaken, for a CAT scan, something like that. And hopefully I'm not, you know, mixing this up, but please read it for yourself. And, you know, they kind of put it off like, oh, you know, you're okay. And I always say what we usually would do is put on our Black female superhero cape and I'm just going to have to be all right. And then when something tragic happens to us, everybody's like, oh my goodness, we didn't see that coming. We didn't know how, you know, but nobody's taking care of us either, you know. But she ended up demanding, I want to say, to have a CAT scan or something like that done. She got it and she was right. And she was in trouble. And they were able to catch it. And of course, you know, she's doing well. Her baby's doing well, but she's speaking out about it. And she basically said, this was not a good thing. It was not, she was like, this was tragic. This was not a good thing. So I'm encouraging everybody right now to find the article, find the videos about it, know what's going on with our women and our babies in these communities. And just because we have access to what we're calling a better healthcare system doesn't mean it's faring us very well. It's not. Right now in the United States, in most states, Black women are 2 to 4 times more likely than women who are not of color to die from a pregnancy, birth, or postpartum related complication. That is not okay. That's not okay.
In that case, then when you're helping your clients, are you seeing these same type of statistics as a doula?
I'm not. I have been fortunate and blessed to not see that, you know, in my own.
So do you think it's luck? Because you said you're fortunate.
I don't believe in luck. I don't believe in luck, and I don't believe in coincidence. What I believe is when we are intentional about things, about how we are going to carry our pregnancy, how we're going to conceive, how we're going to birth, how we're going to be cared for during the postpartum period, I believe that we have much better results when we have care and proper support in place, when women have other women who trust them, believe in them and want to see them do well, women who understand them from a cultural background, you know, and when they feel like they are well taken care of and well supported, I feel like women do well. That's
beautiful. So it sounds like, I mean, and somebody wrote a whole book, and I can't remember her name, called Medical Apartheid. If we want to know more of what's happening in these institutions, you can find Serena's article and learn about that. I could tell you stories about how they wanted to sterilize me in the hospital, and you know, just there's plenty. I think everybody has a story how they was mistreated in the hospital during pregnancy, perhaps. So we know what's happening there, and I think we have to focus on doing new things. I love how you're talking about taking back your wellness, being intentional, and seeing better results because of that. Now, I read that quote from Planned Parenthood, and I've had experiences working in crisis centers where one of them was the term is used, pregnancy resource center. And it's a place, I worked in a little community where women who were pregnant, maybe a surprise pregnancy, a first pregnancy or whatever, they were having a lot of anxiety around their pregnancy, and they would come in, and what we would do is empower them to know that they could carry their baby to term. We offered parenting classes. We offered a program where you would also get supplies. I mean, this was in a community, and I wouldn't say it was in a community of color either, but I was happy to be able to speak to the Black young women who came in there, and I think that's what you're talking about, that's missing, the support. You know, that's one aspect, because I would think with the billions of churches we have out here that we should have a pregnancy resource center as a part of a church, a women's wellness situation as a part of the church, because if you up in the pulpit talking to God every Sunday, it sounds like he would let you know that we need these things.
Or you would in your community, because these same women are coming to church, and these same women are giving tithes and giving money to the church, and we have pastors that are driving Jaguars for little babies that don't have, you know, a safe place to sleep at night, you know, when they go home with their mother. So I digress.
Exactly. And I love how you try to keep it positive, because that's what we have to do. We just have to simply recognize what's missing and fill that hole, you know, and that's what I see you trying to do. And that's beautiful. So can we just move on to just womb health in general for a second, and women's health as a whole? Because, you know, I've heard people, my sister Art Kathy, who comes on with me sometimes, she talks about how when she asks women about, you know, their interest in focusing on their reproductive health, they say, no, I don't plan on having kids, or I'm done having kids, as if the reproductive health, because that term is a crazy term to me, but it just centers around you having a baby. And then once you do that, you don't need your womb. Like, you just want to sell it and give your womb away. Like, what's up with that?
And that's what a lot of women are doing. It's like, oh, well, I don't want any more children. I don't want to deal with any pregnancy scares, quote unquote, and things like that. So just take it on out. You know, I know with myself, after having children, it's kind of like, oh, what kind of birth control? What kind of birth control? Are you getting your tubes tied? Like, and I'm like, leave my womb alone. Leave it alone. It is just fine the way it is. But like I said earlier, you know, womb health starts in young womanhood. You know, it doesn't start when we're thinking about conception, and it doesn't end when we're done having children. You know, your womb is your womb forever, and hopefully you're blessed to have it in your body for forever. You know, be very careful, because I feel like there are a lot of us losing our wombs, you know, due to circumstances and situations that were absolutely not necessary, you know, if that makes sense. So keep your womb, love your womb, heal your womb, feed your womb, but absolutely.
But how do you do that, Sister Shiphrah? How do we begin to do that, especially once we get ourselves out of this trained mindset that, oh, I don't need my womb, you just ready to throw it in the garbage, you ready to take it out?
Please don't throw it away. But learning foods, good foods that support your womb. Learning motion, dance is one of the best things that women can do, you know, for their womb. Love that womb.
Oh, the strippers got it.
That's a lifestyle choice. No, I'm joking.
I'm just joking.
Yes, I know. doing that rhythmic dance, those cultural, dances when we were moving, letting the blood flow circulate throughout our wombs. A lot of us just have toxic, stagnant blood and junk sitting inside of our wombs, causing issues, fibroids, cancers, all kinds of things, and we're like, well, where did this come from? We're not loving on her every day. I encourage my women to do womb massage, whether it's for fertility and wellness. And one of the things I do, with my clients, my womb wellness clients, we come out, I teach them how to do proper womb massage, whether it's for fertility or whether it's for wellness. Some moms are like, oh, absolutely not. Let's not do the fertility massage, so we work on wellness, how to prepare for when our cycles are about to start, once the menstruation part of our cycles are getting ready to start, once our moon cycles have started, what we should be doing to prepare for that, so things are not painful, and so that we're not bleeding for days and days and days, for 5 and 7 days, and becoming anemic, because of it, just kind of learning how to take care of ourselves, learning plants, learning herbs. We need to learn how to take care of it. How do I do this without taking Midol? I have a good client friend of mine, and hopefully she won't get me for saying this when she watches it, but she told me, she said, oh, I was taking Tramadol. She was telling me all the good stuff she was taking to deal with her cycles. She said her cycles have been severe since her cycles began. And it just broke my heart. It just hurt my heart to think there are young women who are starting to take these medications in their early teens and are taking them for the rest of their life, putting all kinds of toxins and things inside of our bodies. It's not good, for our health, but also connecting with other women. We need support. We need to pick each other's brains. We need to know, what are you doing to support your womb? What are you doing? So one of the things I would love to do is start like a womb group, I guess, where women will come together, once or twice a month and just share, what are we doing? And I guess sometimes I live in my own little bubble, in my own little world, and I forget that there are people out here that still don't know, that just don't know. One of the things I was going to mention that I do is I use natural products, during my moon cycle.
Me too. That changed everything for me.
Absolutely. And you will have a completely different cycle, completely different cycle. And when I talk to so many women about it, especially women of color, because other cultures, they already are doing this stuff, when I talk to our women, it's like, you do what? You have to wash them? Like, no, I don't want to be. I'm like, these are your bodily fluids, There's nothing nasty and disgusting and gross about the way you were created and the way your body was designed to operate. So those are some of the things. And starting with our young girls and starting to teach them, how to, be blessed by being a woman and be blessed by the way our bodies operate and learning how to properly take care of them as well.
Well, Sister Shiphrah, first of all, you sound like someone that we need to have at the Nubian Essence Wellness Retreat and as a guest presenter, hopefully on Nubian Essence Live, because it is the online health and wellness destination for Black women, where we are getting together and sharing information on our wellness, like detoxing and women's health and all of these things, eating a proper diet and all of that. So I urge anyone who is interested in those things, definitely go to Nubian Essence Luxury Retreat.com. You'll get access to the Nubian Essence Live program, and you can reach out to our sister Shiphrah at maternalrootsatlanta.com. That is maternalrootsatlanta.com. Tell her you want her to come to the business and wellness retreat in June. And but we need this type of expertise. We need to get together as a group, like you said, and support one another, and to hear all of these. This is cutting edge, okay? Not the robot that can deliver your baby, but this is cutting edge, ancient wisdom that is proven, that is that was created for a melanated being. We need to get back to that. We need to send the message around the world so that we don't depend on places like Planned Parenthood or other places that may or may not don't have our best interests at heart. Before we let you go, Sister Shiphrah, because I really appreciate your time. She's on vacation right now talking to us guys. So Thank you, ma'am, for doing that. Thank you. She is our sister and she cares about us. But one of the things you mentioned was belly binding
Mhm.
and yoni steaming. Can you, I hear that word yoni a lot. Now, can you kind of just break that down real quick for us? And maybe on Nubian Essence Live, we'll get a chance to have you talk about that in depth. But can you give us a summary of what those things are?
Right. So I'll start with the belly binding. And belly binding is not just for women after childbirth, but they're ancient practices. There's so many different types of belly binding you could do, all the way from Bengkung belly binding, which is an Asian art form of belly binding, all the way to, doing a double wrap with a long scarf or a simple pashmina. And I come over lots of times, and a lot of women I do work with are postpartum because I'm a birth worker. And I come over and teach them how to wrap the belly and wrap the womb to help to give the body support. Because otherwise, after you have a baby, all your organs are just kind of sloshing around now because that space is now empty. And the organs are trying to figure out how to go back into place as the uterus is, beginning to still having those surges and still having those waves and going back down to a smaller size. And lots of times it's very uncomfortable. It doesn't feel good. And we want to encourage those abdominal muscles to also go back into their proper places. So lots of times we do the binding, and it's important that we do it properly, so we're not encouraging things like uterine prolapse, which is something we want to stay away from, which is when the uterus begins to fall down into the vagina. We don't want to do that. So there's a way to do it properly, and I come over, get hands-on, and teach the family how to do this, so that I don't, number one, have to keep coming back to do it. And it's something that now the woman is empowered. She could do it herself, her husband can do it, her mother can do it, her sister, her best friend, her neighbor, can come over and help her. And that could be also a time for somebody to come by, check up on her, check on the baby, spend some time with her, get some face-to-face interaction. But it's encouraging the body to go back to its normal state. And
Even if you're not, what if you're not postpartum? It does that as well? Because I'm a bind my belly after we get off.
I love being binded. I had someone to bind me not too long ago, and I wore it for about 2 days, and it was so comfortable. It helps with things like posture. A lot of times, the older we get, we start slouching, sitting like this, and things like that. But it helps with posture because it's really difficult if you have a nice snug bind on. It's really difficult to let that spine just kind of, get relaxed. You have to sit up, and it's comfortable. It feels good. It just feels like almost like a chiropractic adjustment, like you're getting a nice squeeze to your muscles and your bones. It just feels really good, and it's good support, if that makes sense. So I love it. If I had I should say time. I need to stop saying not having the time. One day I will have the time to do it on a regular basis and to be able to do it, a couple times a week and just wear it, for a day or so and just enjoy it, enjoy that bind. So any more questions about belly binding?
No, yeah, we don't have time to go into it now, but we're gonna hopefully we'll be able to. I'm gonna have to talk to you about picking this up. But what about yoni steaming real quick?
All right. So with the yoni steaming, yoni, of course, is another term for the womb, or your feminine essence, as I like to call it. So with yoni steaming, it's an ancient practice. And when I work with clients who are not from the United States, that are not from America, everybody else knows about this. When I work, especially when I work with mothers who are, from the Caribbean, or mothers that I work with that are from the motherland, they're like, oh, yes, 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 that's what my grandmother did. Or, I remember when they did that with my aunt. And we do the herbal baths and all those things postpartum. And when we're not, before and after conception, we're not, having babies. But basically, you steam the womb. And you're sitting over warm steam with herbs. I like to tailor my herbs to the client that I'm working with. Different places do things a little different. I always say just be careful because some of us are sensitive to certain herbs. So know what's in your steam before you're sitting over, the pot. So in like the Caribbean, lots of times they call it sit the pot. You're sitting on the pot. And so sometimes it's done in a bucket, like a metal bucket. Some women are squatting over a small pot and they're steaming herbal, essence.
Now, is there a chance for burning the line? I've heard people say, men say that, doctors who are men say, well, that can burn the lining, or I don't know. What are the dangers? What are the things you need to watch out for in that?
We need to be careful. We need to make sure it's not too hot. We need to, and I always say, like, I feel like a lot of times, depending on some of these systems, we're starting to lose like our common rationale, if that makes sense. So of course it should not be hot to burning. I compare it to if you've ever done a facial steam to see, you wouldn't have the steam so hot that you would burn the skin on your face. And of course, you know, the tissue, you know, down below in your feminine area is a bit more sensitive than the skin on your face. So you would want to make sure the temperature is appropriate. I like mine very warm. That's just me. Hopefully that's not too much information for everyone. I have some clients that I work with that they like it just a nice warm, just enough to give off a little bit of steam. We usually sit over the herbs for about 20 to 30 minutes. I always let my clients know at any point in time, if you become uncomfortable, let me know and we can cease and desist, if that makes sense. If it's too hot, you know, whatsoever. And there's so many different ways you could do it. I have a wooden steam stool. I have a metal bucket that I use. I have an electric, you know, steamer, you know, and I have my favorite. I won't tell my favorite right now. But,
so it sounds like it could be kind of fun, huh?
I have a good time. I journal while I'm steaming. It's a good time for me to release, because as women, we tend to hold so much inside of our womb, so many emotions, past experiences. And so as I'm doing my own unraveling, you know, things that I'm also getting rid of, because I'm human, you know, also, you know, I do my journaling. You can listen to music. My clients read, you know, meditate, all those things, pray, you know, while they're doing their steaming sessions. So we have a beautiful experience.
Awesome, Sister Shiphrah. Thank you so much for sharing this time with us. Again, you guys can connect with her at Maternal Roots with an S, Atlanta.com. maternalrootsatlanta.com. Also, for more information on the Nubian Essence retreat, go to nubianessenceluxuryretreat.com. Sister Shiphrah, thank you so much. Are there anything else you want to say to wrap us up?
I would just say, sisters, take back your wellness for your family, for your womb, for yourselves, for your babies. Take back your wellness. Be powerful, be strong, follow your intuition, trust the Creator, and keep moving forward. Anybody has questions, please reach out to me. And thank you so much for having me on today. I enjoyed.
Thank you. And we enjoyed you and we needed you. All right, guys. So we love you. I'm so glad you tuned in. I hope this information was encouraging and inspiring. And I'll see you in the next video.